Bo and thank him for not firing you sooner, he said during a live investor call. You ever hear your professional eulogy delivered by a man-child with a vape pen clipped to his collar? That's how I knew, right then. Not that I was fired, oh no, not yet, but that whatever soul this company had left had officially been snorted up the nose of nepotism and exhaled into a Slack channel labeled #crush-goals. 16 years. I gave this place 16 years, and not one of them was glamorous. I wasn't the keynote speaker. I wasn't the face in Forbes. I was the quiet woman in flats dragging a rollout across the finish line while 3 departments played hot potato with accountability. I survived 5 VPs, 2 acquisitions, and 1 actual office fire. I stitched together broken forecasts, updated cap tables at 3 a.m., once covered an entire launch weekend because the chief of product got lost at Burning Man. And then Tyler arrived. Tyler, whose biggest achievement prior to landing in our corner office was bankrupting an app that offered emotional check-ins for dogs. Tyler, son of Grant Hollies, our long-suffering VP of strategic whatever, who decided the best way to reboot our division was to replace seasoned operators with his own special brand of frat house ambition. No job titles, no accountability, just whiteboards full of buzzwords and interns calling themselves Vision Sherpas. Subscribe if you haven't already. By the way, it's free, helps us more than you know, and keeps stories like this flowing. 95% of listeners never click that little button, and let me tell you, if you've ever wanted to support someone who survived a weaponized Slack emoji, now's your moment. Hit the like while you're at it, it fuels the revenge. Anyway, first thing Tyler did, clean house, he called it, which meant cutting anyone who remembered what the house was built on. My calendar started shrinking. Weekly strategy sync, canceled. Budget oversight, reassigned to a growth associate who once asked if net revenue meant after taxes. My badge stopped working on half the floor. I'd ask questions, where's the updated roadmap? Or who approved this spending line? Tyler would flash that used car salesman's smile and say, let's not get bogged down in legacy thinking. That's when I noticed I couldn't access the investor memo drive. Not read-only, not restricted, gone. I asked IT, and they said the permissions had been updated per executive directive, which was odd, considering I'd been the one managing that folder for the last 5 fiscal years. Even odder, the timing. A week prior, flagged a set of expense reimbursements that didn't match up with our stated growth initiatives. Mostly innocuous, flights to Miami, conference tickets, but a few smelled wrong. Like 2 seats booked for a 1-person pitch. Like a $12K vendor meeting at a resort that didn't list any business conference that week. I didn't raise a fuss. Yet, I just started keeping copies. Then came the project shuffle. Tyler pulled me off a compliance roadmap mid-cycle, something we'd been prepping for 6 months, and dumped it on a junior analyst with all the processing power of a toaster. Said he wanted fresh energy. I nodded, smiled, and updated the risk matrix to reflect a 40% chance of strategic implosion. That's not hyperbole, I actually did that. Nobody noticed. They were too busy playing ping pong in the break room we used to call finance. By this point, I'd moved from cautious optimism to cold observation. I wasn't fighting, I was documenting. And the more I watched, the more I saw. Internal pitches inflated beyond reason, burn rates polished for board decks, and Tyler bragging about streamlining operations by eliminating QA review on our new product line. A product, by the way, that hadn't passed a full regression test since his arrival. Still, nobody said a word, because Tyler had that kind of stupid confidence that acts like bug spray against accountability. And his daddy stood behind him like a human airbag, always ready to cushion the fallout. Until the investor call. They CC'd me as a courtesy, I think, or maybe someone forgot I still existed. Either way, the invite hit my inbox with a subject line that read, Investor Sync, Pipeline/Leadership Updates. My name wasn't on the agenda. I wasn't scheduled to speak, but I recognized a few other names on the call, names I hadn't seen in years, big ones. People who asked real questions, the kind Tyler wouldn't be able to bullshit his way through. I clicked yes. Then I opened my screen recorder. I didn't know what I'd catch, not yet. But something in my gut, something born from 16 years of cleaning up other people's messes, told me to keep my finger near the trigger. Turns out, I wouldn't have to wait long. The call started like all bad ideas do, with a calendar invite and no warning. Subject line, Investor Update Strategic Ops Shift. No time to prep, no deck, no bullet points. just an all-hands panic click from Tyler's executive assistant, who clearly thought CYA stood for Click You All. My name wasn't on the agenda. That was the first red flag. The second, the call was scheduled on a Friday morning, which is when Tyler liked to announce half-baked ideas he couldn't defend in person. I clicked in anyway, sipping stale coffee and wearing the same cardigan I kept on the back of my chair since 2014. Legacy inefficiency in knit form. I wasn't front and center. I wasn't even Tyler's backup singer, but I was unmuted. My camera, active, which meant someone wanted me visible, but silent. Felt like being strapped to a chair in the audience while someone read your diary out loud and called it disruption. The investors were already there when I joined. 4 of them. Cameras off, mics off, like sharks with MBA certificates. One name caught my eye, Elias Rowe, senior partner at Levant Capital. That man doesn't show up unless money's moving or lawsuits are circling. If Elias was here, this wasn't just an update. This was a judgment. Tyler's video blinked on. Same greasy smirk, same $90 haircut pretending to be $300. He had that breathless startup energy like he'd just mainlined a TED playlist before hopping on Zoom. Hey. Thank you all for joining. I know Fridays are sacred, but we've got some exciting changes to share. Really proud of how our ops division has evolved under new leadership. He gestured vaguely, as if his reflection was the leadership in question. Then, real knife, some of our longtime contributors, fantastic folks, are stepping back. We're transitioning away from legacy workflows and moving into a more dynamic, responsive structure. More agility, less bureaucracy. I heard that word like a slap. Bureaucracy is what these people call it when someone asks to see an actual contract before burning $3 million on a launch party for beta. I wasn't mentioned by name. Not yet. Every syllable out of his mouth painted a picture, and I was the outdated wallpaper being peeled off in real time. You could almost hear the click of the guillotine being raised, disguised as synergy. We've implemented a streamlined permissions protocol, shifted forecasting to a decentralized node model, which, by the way, means spreadsheets with no owner, and we're investing in more ambitious talent from outside the org to really reinvigorate our foundational layers. It was like listening to a sales pitch written entirely by a drunk AI. The investors were dead silent. No questions, no nods. Elias sat in the corner square like a gargoyle, unmoving, waiting. That's when I felt it, not anger, not fear, readiness. I moved my mouse. Opened my local screen recorder, nothing fancy, just a program I used to track demo bugs when engineering denied things were broken. One click, quiet. No notifications. I watched the red dot blink in the corner of my screen. I didn't say a word. Tyler kept going. In fact, we've identified some inefficiencies from long-term personnel who have been, let's say, less aligned with our growth metrics. It's all love, but change is growth. He smiled at the camera. Then, straight-faced and deadpan, he said, we had one operations lead who was duplicating workflows from 5 years ago. Honestly, I should have fired her when I walked in. But hey, sometimes mercy's a learning curve, right? I didn't blink, because now it was clear. This wasn't a strategy call. It was a live execution, and I was the warm-up act for his little martyr complex. He leaned forward, voice full of smug, but she's here, so maybe she'll bow and thank me for not letting her go sooner. There it was, the trap. It wasn't an accident that I was unmuted. He wanted the performance. A soundbite, proof that his reign wasn't just sanctioned, but celebrated. I looked into the lens, just long enough. Thank you, Tyler, I said. Your timing is impeccable, and I bowed, just slightly, just enough for the frame. On my screen, the red dot blinked. Recording saved. You'd be surprised how quiet humiliation is when it's performed over Zoom. There's no audience gasp, no desk slams. Just the sterile hum of corporate cruelty disguised as strategy, exhalated across 4 investment firm rectangles, and one too eager VP's son cosplaying as a disruptor. Tyler didn't stop after that first jab. Oh no, he was just warming up. I mean, let's be real here, he said, laughing like a podcast bro who just learned what EBITDA meant. Marla's been with us a long time. She's like a human filing cabinet, great for remembering what 2010 looked like, not so much for executing in 2025. Speak. He took my silence as permission. Some of you probably recognize her name from old decks, quarterly reports, whatever. He continued, pacing slightly, working himself into a froth. She's what I'd call a legacy inefficiency. Good intentions, bad alignment. And look, I tried. I really did. I kept her on out of respect. Honestly, she should be bowing and thanking me for not cutting ties months ago. He paused, raised an eyebrow. Oh, wait, she's right here. Arlo, why don't you go ahead? Thank me. Publicly. Let's make it official. And just like that, it stopped being a business meeting and became a performance, a one-act play called Put the Old Lady in Her Place. I wasn't just being cut out, I was being branded. Marked as dead weight, the ghost of compliance past. A warning to anyone else thinking of asking uncomfortable questions about budgets or protocol or, God forbid, consequences. I took a breath, not deep, controlled. I kept my face calm, eyes direct. No tremble, no twitch. Just the performance he wanted delivered my way. I dipped my head barely. Thank you, Tyler, I said slowly, for the opportunity to witness your leadership firsthand. A few of the investors' screens flickered. One camera turned on briefly, then off. No one spoke. That red recording dot in the corner of my screen, it blinked once, then flashed. Recording saved. File auto-tagged with the call name, timestamped, saved to a backup folder that mirrored to an off-site drive I kept for just-in-case moments. And here's the part that would matter later. That call wasn't just recorded on my end. I noticed it early on, buried in the metadata of the invite. The investor line we dialed into, it was routed through Levant Capital's compliance system. Full recording retention. Legal grade. No oops clause. You say it, it stays said. Tyler hadn't just humiliated me in front of 4 investors. He'd immortalized it. He pivoted back to his pitch like nothing happened. Talked about onboarding new talent from non-traditional backgrounds. Said the quiet part out loud. We don't need more policy thinkers. We need aggressive executors. Which I think was his way of saying, we replaced the woman who built our reporting infrastructure with a guy who sends gifts instead of agendas. I sat still, didn't flinch, didn't log off, because I wasn't done watching. Not yet. As he rambled, I opened my notes folder. One file caught my eye, something I'd flagged weeks ago and never followed up on. Forecast Tyler Final V4 approved PDF. It had been circulated just before this call. I remembered because it had a bullet point claiming operational efficiency gains of 18%, which sounded great, except I knew we were burning 23% more cash month over month since the team restructure. And Tyler, he'd signed off on that doc, right above a section citing my revised models, which I had never seen. He'd forged internal alignment to fake external momentum, and now he'd handed me a recorded monologue to go with it. Still, I sat. Let him finish his little Broadway audition for Series C funding. One of the investors finally unmuted, cleared his throat and said, "We'll circle back on governance items next week." Translation, what the hell did we just witness? Tyler grinned, looking forward to it. The call ended. My screen went black. I closed my laptop, got up from my desk, and walked to the office kitchen. Poured a cup of burnt decaf, stirred it with a red coffee stirrer from a box I'd been meaning to replace for a year. The hum of the fridge was the only applause, but I didn't need applause. I had the recording, and I had time. At 11:43 p.m., my apartment was dead silent, except for the low buzz of my monitor and the occasional sigh from my aging fridge, which sounded like it was reconsidering its life choices every 10 minutes. I had my glasses perched low, 2 tabs open, one for the call recording, one for the folder labeled Red Flags Not Yet. My mug of chamomile tea had gone cold, untouched. I wasn't rewatching the recording for emotional masochism. I was looking for something, and I found it in the first few frames of metadata, buried under the call title, Levant Investor Bridge VC Compliant / Monitored. Investor monitored, not just Zoom recorded. This was a compliance-tagged stream, time-stamped, encrypted, stored offsite. That changed everything. The company had no control over that file now. Neither did Tyler. Might have thought he was doing a little ego theater for investors, but what he'd actually done was open his throat and speak directly into the ears of a compliance team trained to detect retaliation, manipulation, and false representation. I paused the video. The still frame was absurd, Tyler mid-laugh, pointing directly at the camera. Like a still from a discount motivational poster, titled Vision Starts with Brutality. I took a screenshot and dropped it into a fresh folder. Then I opened our internal documentation archive. Now, the trick with our archive system, called Zendir because apparently we hate vowels, is that it doesn't delete anything. Just buries it under version history and naming conventions designed by a bored cryptographer. You have to know what you're looking for. Be stubborn enough to click through every v3.1 beta final 2 real final draft until you find the one that still has digital fingerprints. I was both. I searched for Forecast Tyler Final V4 approved PDF and found 6 versions of it. Most were irrelevant. But version 4, the one cited on the investor deck, had a small note in the footer, adjusted based on revised compliance inputs MC. That would be me. Problem: I never revised that document. Worse, there was a trail. I dug into the logs and saw a version edited after hours from Tyler's admin account, pulling data from a forecasting spreadsheet I hadn't touched in months. Then I cross-checked his pitch line. We've hit 4 out of 5 internal milestones ahead of schedule with our internal compliance emails. Email 1, Milestone 3 delayed due to vendor pushback. Sent by project manager 2 weeks ago. Email 2, Milestone 4 blocked pending data validation. Sent last Friday. Email 3, recommend holding off on reporting Milestone 5 as complete. Backend still in QA. That one was mine. In the pitch, all 5 were marked green. Complete, validated, delivered. He wasn't just stretching the truth, he duct-taped it, waterboarded it, and marched it out to dance for money. I leaned back, stared at the ceiling for a full minute. There's a very specific kind of anger that simmers after humiliation. It's not the yelling in the shower kind. It's quiet, surgical. It wants to end things, not for vengeance, but for equilibrium, for truth, so I composed a message. Simple, factual, no adjectives. 2, redacted subject, call recording 03. Investor update body. Hello, per previous compliance cooperation request, ref, Q4 review. Attaching recording of today's investor sync and relevant documentation. Timestamp markers included. MC. Attachments. Call recording investor bridge 03 MP4, forecast Tyler V4 edit trail PDF, internal compliance milestone 3 to 5 PDF, screenshot camera freeze frame PNG, BCC, lead investigator at Levin Capcom. I hit send. Watch the little paper plane icon disappear. I encrypted my local drive and wiped the cache folder. Not because I was scared, because I was done carrying their mess. The worst part wasn't the falsified numbers. It wasn't even the public shaming. It was knowing they thought I wouldn't do anything, that they saw 16 years of work and assumed it meant I was tired. They were wrong. I wasn't tired. I was done. I walked into the office at 8:37 a.m. sharp, same as always. Same black flats, same olive coat, same travel mug of lukewarm gas station coffee with 2 pumps of artificial hazelnut. My badge beeped at the door like nothing had changed. No whispers, no side eyes, just the dull murmur of printers warming up and salespeople psyching themselves into another day of Post-it-fueled optimism. Tyler was already in the bullpen, holding court like the second coming of Jobs. If Jobs had ever mainlined Celsius and worn designer hoodies that still had the tags on, was pacing in front of his pod of acolytes, arms wide, voice too loud for this early in the morning. By noon, guys, noon, funding clears, we hit our Q1 targets before Q4 even ends. We're setting precedent here, okay? Like disruptive precedent. Someone laughed too hard at that. One of the marketing interns, probably. The same one who once asked me if GOP was an acronym for a clothing brand. I didn't correct her. Let them drown in their own Kool-Aid. I dropped my bag at my desk and opened my laptop. No fireworks, no flashing alerts, just the usual startup slog of Chrome tabs spawning like bacteria. I typed in my credentials and hit enter. Inbox 47 unread. Calendar blocked out with Team Syncs, a fake lunch break, and one ambiguous invite labeled Ops Review Tyler, optional. I accepted it, of course. He saw me then, from across the room. Give me the tight-lipped, oh you're still here smile. The kind of smile you reserve for potholes and expired coupons. Marla, he called. Glad you made it. Big day, I nodded. Always is. His eyes narrowed for half a second like he was trying to figure out if I was being sarcastic. I wasn't. Not this time. Sarcasm requires energy, and I wasn't wasting a single watt. I was all frost and flat tone, the kind of presence that makes weak men wonder if you know something they don't. And I did. The email I'd sent the night before had already been opened. Twice. Once from a Levin Capital server in New York, and again from a mobile device in DC.